Hi, I'm Basarat the TypeScript guy and welcome to my channel. In this lesson we will look at how React hooks allow the same level of state reuse as we have previously seen with Mobx classes. Let's go. We start off with a pretty empty page with just a simple h1 containing the text hello. Now let's go ahead and create a reusable counter component using Mobx. We jump to the file tree, into the source folder, create a new components/counter.tsx. We start off by bringing in the usual suspects, which is React, Mobx, as well as Mobx React. When designing applications that have a lot of logic, it's good to think about the business logic upfront. So here we're going to go ahead and create a counter state with a variable which is going to be observable, which is going to hold the count, as well as an action to increment this count. And we'll export this class from the same file in which we will have our component which depends upon an instance of this class. This class takes an instance of the counter state as its only prop, and then within the render we will go ahead and create a root div followed by a button bound to the increment method, followed by a div which displays the current count. With this Mobx state class pattern, we have a nice reusable state and a rendering to go along with that state. We can put this state anywhere in our application state, and then we can render this state out using the counter component within our application. We will go ahead and create an app_state class. Within that, we will go ahead and instantiate a state for the counter. Next, we go ahead and create an instance of our application state. And now in order to use this observables, we need to mark our application as an observer. And then we can wire this counter state to an instance of the counter. And when we run the application, you can see that it works as expected. Now, great thing about having this reusable state is that we can go ahead and create another instance and then go ahead and wire it to another instance of the counter in the UI. And now we get two reusable counters within the application. Having the state at the application level means that we can go ahead and use logic that might be dependent on both of them. For example, we can display the sum of both the counters at the bottom of the screen. So now the sum is displaying as the different counters are incrementing. Now let's go ahead and rewrite this example using hooks. So we jump back to our counter component and think of reuse in terms of types instead of classes. Fundamentally, we want our counter state to have the count as well as the increment method to increment the count. Now previously we created this using a class, but this time we're going to be using a custom hook. So use counter state will initialize a counter state for us. Internally, it's going to use react.useState to manage the count and then provide the increment method, which will go ahead and change the count to +1 of its previous value. And now we no longer need to mark our counter component as an observer, as the state will be managed by React itself. Now let's go ahead and use this counter and counter state within our application. We no longer create an instance of the app state, no longer bring in Mobx, and we simply create a new hook, use app state, which will go ahead and use our hooks for the states. So counter 1, use counter state, counter second, use counter state, and then we go ahead and return these two instances of the state. And within our application, we will go ahead and remove observer as we no longer need that. We are no longer using Mobx. And for app state, we go ahead and create a new instance using use app state. Everything else works as expected. We'll just go ahead and bring in the import. If we jump back to our application, you can see that it continues to function as expected. And we can add some additional text to show that this is the new application. Now here are my final thoughts. I love hooks. It's great that React finally has a native way of creating a component and a reusable state for the component without having to use a third-party library. This is great for component library and reusable state library authors. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, share it with your friends, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe for more content like this. Take care.